Okay, so now we're on to the second pass. Our client's gotten back to us. They're pretty happy with the direction the first pass has taken. There are some issues with matching up the skin tones, but there are no major creative feedback. There's no major creative problems and no real feedback there. They just want us to get through and finish it up and deliver on time. Our first pass did a lot of the work here. So we're just going to go through and we're going to just do our fine match. We're going to make sure everything matches quite nicely. And we're just going to take care of it all. So the main thing we're going to be doing is our tracking, our face tracking and face vignettes. We're going to make a second stills bin. This time we're going to call this second pass. And we're going to go in and I've increased the saturation, well I've increased the contrast and taken the saturation down a little bit on our contributor's face. And now before and after, just a bit more contrast, a bit more of a natural focal point. So I'm going to go through and do the same. Now I'm just going to copy it across. It's going to copy only the clip grade across when we middle click on the timeline like that, or on this little thumbnail list like that. And it's going to take the old tracking with it. Or in this case it's not, it'll take the tracking with it if you do that from a still. So we just need to put it in the right place and track it through on this shot. And there we go, we're pretty happy with that. So now we're going to do the same here. We're going to make our face vignette. Remember, click this icon to activate shapes. Then we want a circular window. And then we'll just track that through. Maybe take a bit of the saturation out. What we'll do now is we'll just take a still of that in second pass, and now we want to make a comparison and make sure that things are actually matching up. I think that's pretty accurate, so now what we're going to do is actually watch it through. Okay, maybe the highlights are a little bit brighter on the wide. We're getting a few clipped channels here, so maybe just... Okay, that should be okay. In fact, what we'll do is we'll bring that up a little bit, and we'll just bring the red channel back under control. There we go. Okay, that's making him a little bit silvery, so we'll just bring it back, and we'll just bring that down a little bit, make sure we haven't clipped any channels on the face. And we go from there to there. Let's see how that edits. I think the face is okay there. I noticed there's a little bit of green in the background, so let's see if we can try and iron that out. I think that's made an improvement. Let's go back and check it. In fact, let's save, and we'll make a full frame playback. Okay, I think that might just be a little bit bright now that I look at it, so let's just bring the overall brightness of it down. Maybe still a little bit bright. Okay, I think that's a pretty good edit. Looking between these two, I think they match very well indeed. So I'm happy with that. I'm going to put green flags on these 3 shots to show that I'm happy with them. Now we can move on here. Now this is mostly there. This yellow glow on the right hand side of our contributor's face is still a bit of a pain. So what we will do, I'm going to right click in here, add node and a corrector. I'm going to drop that right on the end. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to feed the mask from our skin key, node 3, into this. And then I'm going to go and reverse the key. And now I've got a second node where I'm working inside here. I'm going to tackle this glow like I did before. I'm going to bring up the minimum saturation. And there I've now only got the most saturated parts of the skin tone selected. I'll blur that out. And I'm just going to bring that saturation down a smidge and make it a little bit redder. And now, if you look closely, we had that kind of tungsten tint on the right hand side, and now it's gone completely. That just bugged me when I saw that before. So now we have no trace of that awkward tungsten glow on his face. I am now going to do a face vignette, and I think I'm going to make a bigger vignette on this shot as well. Give me 1 second, I've just got a bit of dust on my screen. So let's do the face vignette first. We'll make a circular window. On this rare occasion, right smack dab in the middle of his hooter is where we want to put the centre of the window. Ah, no, I stand corrected. Just about there. Cool, and we will track that forwards. We're going to have to keyframe this a little bit, so I'm going to cover keyframing in a second. Or we'll recap keyframing in a second. Okay, so this is mostly fine, right up to the point where it diverges here. So we're going to keyframe this to fix it. We're going to hit the diamonds here. Now this is our keyframing dialog. I'm going to keep keyframing very short and simple because this is going to be a long session anyway. Basically, a keyframe is a point where we have a set of significant values, and when we have 2 keyframes, the program does what we call interpolation between those 2 keyframes. It moves from one set of values to the next. And in the very simplest terms, we can move an object from one place on frame to the next. We can change color. You can actually keyframe absolutely everything in the grade like we covered before. But in this case, I'm just going to use it to manually clean up a track that diverges at this point. So we go to where it begins to diverge, which is here. Then on corrector 8, on the circular window, we're going to hit the diamond to enable keyframing. We're going to right click and choose add dynamic keyframe. Then we're going to go to where it finishes diverging, and that's usually when these little peaks and troughs in the lines here start to level out. We're going to add another dynamic keyframe, and then we're just going to drag it back on there. And now we're going to go back to the end, and we're just going to fix it and make sure it's right on there. So now that fixes it. We're going to turn keyframing off so we don't change anything by mistake. And now we're just going to fix the contrast in our contributor's face here. So we'll bring these shadows down, we'll turn the window off, we'll bring these shadows down, and the highlights up a little bit, and then we'll bring the saturation down slightly, stop them from going bright orange. And we just want maybe a little bit more pink. A little bit more in the highlights, a little bit. A little bit less colour. There we go. I think that's a pretty good match between those two. Now, the big thing is these 2 shots are in very different locations and do have different lighting. They're not going to be identical in their setup and their look, but what we want is to avoid any kind of jarring, and I think that's very good. I think that edit is fine. It doesn't jar at all. There's a little bit of stuff we can fix. We've got some noise. But what we will do is we will take care of that noise in our third pass. Our third pass is likely not to take very long in this instance, because we're getting a lot of our work done in the second pass. I'm now happy with that. watching it through, comparing it. I will put a green flag on that. My only complaint with this shot is that it's looking a little bit misty, and maybe the contrast isn't there. The kind of grounding blacks that we need aren't quite there. So why don't we just take a shifty? We'll get our scopes back up so we can see what we're doing. Okay, and the challenge we face is if we bring the shadows down, obviously this gets a little bit too dark, so we might just bring things in. That's still looking a little bit saturated. Maybe we'll just take some of the colour out of there. There we go. Okay, now that I watched that through, I can see a little bit of a halo. So let's just fix that. Let's go back to our keyframing. We've made sure we've got keyframing on. Now when we change it, it'll lay a keyframe down automatically, and we just want to go through and make sure that we don't have that kind of halo. Let's just watch that through without. Maybe I saw a little there, can see it again. Little bit around the edge, so what we can do is we'll just bring that in. Can just about see it there. Okay, let's just undo what we did. Then we will pull it back in and avoid that halo hitting the outside. And then what we will do is we'll just drag that over here, make it less likely to hit outside. Then right at the end we'll put another one back in there. Okay, and that's fine. Now fix the tracking on that vignette. That vignette was a bit of a challenge. There's quite a strong adjustment within it, so if it deviates slightly we will see a kind of halo effect, but we've since fixed that. Now, when we start here it's a little bit airy and washed out. Then when we come down we do actually get... that looks too dark to me actually, let's put that back to where it was. So we'll just see how these two edit together. Not ideal, but I think that's okay. It's not super jarring. The yellow in this hair here is a little bit distracting on that edit though, so we'll just go in with a sat versus sat. Okay. Just pull that down ever so slightly. Okay, some of the shadows on the left-hand side here are getting a little bit harsh. So we'll just bring our mids down. And we've got a bit of noise and a bit of colour in those shadows, so what I'm going to do is also go to the end and then pull that colour out. I'll do some of this really fine detailed stuff in our third pass, which shouldn't take very long. Fine. Now let's make sure, let's take a look. Okay, that's a much better edit. I'm going to put a green flag on these two clips. Now, as we're going through, I'm taking a note of small details that I want to get absolutely perfect, but that the client is unlikely to realise. Throughout, we've got noise. I will cover noise reduction in our final pass, and also we've got some colour noise in our shadows. You can just see little bits, specks of red and blue in our shadows. We're going to go through in our third pass and make an adjustment with Lum VSAT and just keep these under control. This, I would actually say, is absolutely fine. I wouldn't change anything about this. It's so significantly different from everything else that most of the real differences between it and the rest of the edit are justified. But the hue of the red brick back here is nice in keeping with everything else. Red brick is a memory colour, but we haven't changed it so much that it looks unnatural. It's not very like lemon yellow, so that's okay. We're now going to come to this shot. Now, we were mostly okay with this, save for a bit of face vignetting we were going to do, but we were also going to fix a few things, or we're mainly going to fix the close-ups and do a bit of keyframing and animation, but for the time being, her hair does get a bit in the way. We'll just bring that down a smidge. That just adds a nice bit of contrast there. We get those brown eyes coming out really nicely. And we haven't got a visible circle on the hair, that's really important. That I would say is okay. Let's just take a look from there to there. Maybe I could do with a bit more contrast. Maybe I'll bring the shadows down a smidge more. Tell you what I'll also do at the end is, there we go, I've already done a Lumpy set, haven't I? Cool, and now, that's nice. Her suit, jacket, dress, blouse, whatever it is she's wearing isn't as strongly blue as that, but that's okay because it's not naturally. We've kept our nice blue colour scheme. And now here we've got a bit of manual keyframing to do on this node with this mask, like we said before. So we're going to go to the manual keyframing, unfurl corrector 3, go to the start, and then activate keyframing, not for polygon window, but for power curve, because this is our curve window that we've got here. We're going to add a dynamic keyframe, and then we're just going to make sure that as we go through, we keep it clear of anything that might be interfered with. And then we also make sure that it doesn't expose a big yellow halo on the wall behind our contributor here. Okay, now we're going to watch this through a few times, see if we can spot any errors. See if we can spot there's a little blue speck on her scalp if the masking goes wrong. See there's no blue appearing in her eyes. See there's no yellow halo on the wall here, and that all seems perfect. We will save. And now, right at the end, we'll put a bit of a face vignette on. Again, it might not be as necessary on this shot. We'll soften that up a bit more. Keep that skin under control. No, that's a little bit weird. Okay, she is still a little bit red on this shot. So let us make a new node for skin. There we go, I think that's more or less an ideal match. We'll just grab a still. I think between those two, the skin tones are more or less ideal match there. Okay, so I'm now happy with that. First off, I'm going to clear all flags, and then I'm going to flag them green. It's possible for a shot to maintain a flag of every colour. So I'm going to clear it all and then add green. And now I know that I'm happy with that shot. I also know I'm happy with this shot, now that I think on it. So we're going to slowly work through the timeline, you know, signing off on shots we're happy with, essentially with the big green flag. And we're just going to go straight through our timeline and do that throughout. Our third pass is going to be very simple. It's mainly going to be just taking care of shadow noise and a bit of a noise reduction pass. Maybe some very, very slight tweaks upon watching the timeline through again. but most of our work is going to have been done in the first and second passes on this project. Third pass is typically polish and very fine match. It's not typically like changing a lot of things very drastically. So here we go. On this one, I'm really happy with this overall. It's going to be a face vignette again. Resolve does have an effect meant to refine faces automatically. My personal opinion is that it has some way to go yet, so I do the face vignette method. I'm going to add just a little bit of contrast there. Down the saturation slightly. I've just added a little bit of extra clarity there. Those eyes come out quite nicely. On the subject of eyes, we could justifiably go back to this shot and make a mask for the individual eyes. I don't think it's necessary here. We might do this on another angle just for the sake of demonstration. Now there's still a bit of green showing here, so let's go back and see if we can make our curve a little bit more. Okay, I think that's much better. So we're going to want to do our face vignette. Let's just make sure. Okay, maybe her skin's a little bit different. Okay, we'll increase the saturation a little bit here. Okay, I think that's a better match. Now, looking at the two here, she has a very nice high contrast. Already, I don't think I might really need a face vignette in this close-up, although one thing has just jumped out to me, and that would be in the corner of her eye here, this very strong saturated bit, so I'm just going to make a quick HSL. I'm doing this all in group pre-clip, so it hits the others as well, because I'm not doing any vignetting in this one. We're just going to take care of that saturated shadow, and we will pull the sat back a little bit, and then we'll just keep that odd saturated thing in her cornea, I think, or is it tear duct, corner of her eye. It also hit a problematic area in the center of the nostril as well. Now let's just save. We're going to play this one through and see how the edit goes. Okay, I think the hair is a little bit redder in this one, so let's just go back to what we did with the skin. Okay, I think that's a good match. We'll save, and I'm going to put green flags on these two. Flags green. And now I'm just going to copy paste that vignette onto this one, and we will track it once again. And we will put a green flag on this shot as well, and slowly but surely we're working our way through the entire timeline. Now this still looks a little bit dark to me in comparison to the others. Actually, it's pretty good. No, maybe that's fine. Maybe I just... Nope, that's okay. Fair enough. Just making stuff up. He's a little bit yellower than others, but it's okay. We can have a bit of variation in our skin tones. Our board director is quite a pink individual, and you get that. You be surprised. Like, you see people, like, by eye, we all look to be of a similar hue. Then on camera, someone just looks really, really pink. Right, I wouldn't fiddle around with that too much. I would just do, you guessed it, a face vignette. We did quite a comprehensive first pass on this one, so we're not going to go through a huge amount of radically different detailing here. And it does help that the client was quite happy. In later projects, we are going to be dealing with clients who want quite significant changes. Cool. Bring the saturation down ever so slightly. Nice. Good bit of focus there. Okay, green flag. Right, this one is mostly good. I might just add a bit of an overall vignette here. And just focusing things in on our two employees there. And to do that, obviously, I'm just drawing a shape and then I'm hitting this invert mask button. So I'm working outside of that shape, so I make a kind of circular vignette around the whole thing. And you can just see the effect that has is to make a bit of a border or a frame around the whole thing. And I will leave that there and give that a green flag for this pass. So let's just check. That's alright, there's a little bit of green here. Let's just see if we can improve the curve we've made to manage the blue. So let's see if I can smooth out the curve and get rid of some of the little green halos left around. Cool, that's much better. Okay, let's just check what we have. It may be that we don't actually need a vignette here. Nope, we do definitely need a bit of a face vignette, so we're just going to put that on there. And we'll just track that forwards. Resolves tracker is very, very good indeed. Let's just get an idea of what we're after. We'll bring that up. Bring that down, and we'll just kill the saturation slightly to keep it under control. Maybe that's just a little bit desaturated. I think that's a pretty good match. Let's nice. Right, we'll save and we'll put a green flag on that. This shot, we know what we're doing. We're just going to paste the vignette on and track. And this does get a little bit tedious. Feel free to wind on in the video if you want to. That's fine. And now what we're going to do is sort this mask out as well. And then we're going to keyframe. In fact, I don't even think we need to keyframe this one here. Let's just check the mask. Okay, no, we are getting a little bit of interference on the skin, so we're going to be careful, and we're just going to make sure that we keyframe it. Make sure we avoid leaving any halo on there. Cool. Let's just watch that through a few times, make sure it's okay. Bit of noise, but we're going to take care of noise in our third pass. Excellent, that's good. We'll save and we'll give that a green flag. We'll clear all. Flag, green. Right, we know what we're doing on this shot. Once again, tracking a face vignette. And we'll put a green flag on that one. Right, so this one's going to need a little bit more work. We've got that odd yellow glowing effect, and we just want to make sure that it's a bit more under control. So we'll bring the colour of the skin down a little bit. We might just swing it over so it's a bit more red. And that's better. And let's just check the vector scope, and we have things pointing towards blue as well. That's very good. Okay, I think given how drastically different the two lighting scenarios are, that's a pretty good match. Let's just see how they edit and see if it throws up anything that's really jarring. A little bit bright, isn't it? Just add a last primary, and what we'll do is we'll bring everything down a little bit and then see if that helps. She's still a little bit orange. Maybe we could... That is not what I intended to do at all. There we go. And maybe just bring that saturation down slightly. Okay, I think that's an alright match. It's not too jarring, and then we go back into that again. Good, I will put a green flag on that. In some circumstances, the match is never going to be truly, truly perfect. What we're aiming for is to make this look like it belongs in the edit, and I believe that's the case there. It's not particularly jarring. We might watch that through in the third pass and come back to it, but I'm pretty happy with that edit. Let's just watch it through one last time. Now, I am happy with that. Cool. This one. Okay, this one's going to take a bit of work, I'm pretty sure. We still have a lot of yellow in here, don't we? I'm just a bit wary of noisy crushed shadows down here. And insufficient highlights. It's an awkward one. We have very warm, colourful things being the brightest, and they tend to kind of blow out a little bit and go a bit glowy. So we just want to try and control the saturation in our highlights, really, when we work on this, to avoid kind of weird glowing qualities. Let's just see how these edit. Still yellow, isn't it? That's frustrating. Okay, let's take another. I think that's a better match. Cool. That's fine. Maybe I could just bring the highlights here up a little bit and keep that kind of bright touch. I'll bring those up, and then I'll go back to the RGB curves, and I will save those blown out hotspots from the practicals. The background's a little bit cyan, so I will impose a secondary, and I will make one. I will make a new node, and what we'll do is we'll bring the cyans down a bit so they're more with the on-brand blue. There we go. Now we have that nice blue running through everything. In this case, the blue might just be a little bit aggressively blue. It might just be just tinting into magenta, and we want to avoid that, so just bring that down a little bit, and there we go. We're back to our dude again, so we're just gonna plonk that vignette on there and get to business. Ah, that was damn. Ah, that was dumb. Okay, so this shot, and how are we going? We're about... I will put a yellow flag on this one and come back to that in the third pass, because it's getting close but still needs more work. There are always a few awkward shots, and the lighting in here is just a little bit awkward. Got a lot of very strong warm light on skin tones, and that tends to make things quite difficult to deal with. We can come back to it later rather than blow a load of time right now. That I'm happy with. I'll give a green flag. Let's just watch this through, make sure we don't have any halos around the face. That's fine. Cool, that's nice. I think we might just bring some shadows down a little bit in here to make sure that we keep that kind of nice contrasty definition going. You know what, we'll fix that in the third pass, that's fine, we'll come back to that. Right, this needs some darker shadows. And it definitely needs some of the yellow tilting to red. Let's just take a look at our vector scope. Our blues are quite cyan back here, so what we will then do is make a new node. And I don't like what's happening with his ears here, so we'll do a HSL to control that in a second. We'll just get that blue to be a bit closer. Right, now let's take care of these very saturated bits of his ears. As always, saturated shadows which behave a little bit oddly. We'll just pull those down a little bit, and now they're gone. If we look very closely, we can see the difference that's made. Bit glowy, bit odd. Brought down, brought back under control. Fine. I think... No, if this shot was stationary, I would put a vignette on there, but we tend not to vignette with static shapes when a shot moves a lot because it gives the vignette away and it makes it look artificial. So I would say that that's okay. Let's just see how it edits. A little bit bright, but then it is a bright shot. Bring the parade back up so I know what I'm doing. Cool, I'm happy with that. I shall put a green flag on there. That shot I'm quite happy with. I think I might just get the blue to go in line, make a new node for that. Now we're just making sure that we keep that significant brand blue. Just make sure we keep that significant brand blue throughout. Now there are little bits on her hair which look a little bit odd here, so I'm going to add another curve and I'm going to take some of the saturation out of the shadows. It can still be a bit there, but I just didn't want it to be as, because it was kind of glowing and looking a bit odd, and now that's brought that back under control. So that's fine, I'm very happy with that. Nice hairstyle. Cool. Right, back to this bloke again. Okay, we'll try that again. I'm going to turn perspective 3D off for this track because I think that's partially what's making a problem, and also the watermarking here might be making a problem as well. I'm going to turn interactive mode on. I'm going to make a selection and I'm going to remove all of these points. Now we don't have any tracking points on the watermarking, and now I'm going to track forwards. And it's pretty good. I'm just going to take interactive mode off. I'm just going to shift the whole thing back a little bit. So we used interactive tracking to make sure that the watermarking there didn't interfere with the track. And that's fine. Let's just check and make sure it still matches. Cool. And we'll put a green flag on there as well. It's just going back to copy, paste and track. Try and avoid spilling over too much so we don't get a visible halo. And once again, let's just see how this one goes. Interactive mode, we'll get rid of any tracking points over the watermark and then track forwards. That was easy. And again. Okay, these all edit together nicely. We'll put a green flag on those. That I'm actually really happy with. There are two faces here. I'm not going to track them both. I'm not going to do anything to that. I'm actually happy with it. I'm actually happy with that as well. How does he move? This guy is pretty important in this company, so we are going to put a little bit more emphasis on him when we can. What we'll do is we'll just bring him back to the kind of ruddy looking self he is. Cool. Okay, this dude again. We've already done this. And there's a lot of box checking in our second pass. Our first pass is where we do the bulk of our work. It's very common for the first pass to take the most time. That's when you're actually instating a look. If you have a lot of rotoscoping to do, the second pass can be very time consuming indeed. But in this case, we don't have a lot of roto, and the first pass is where we spent most of our time. So we don't have a huge amount of work to do in our second pass. We're just going through and making sure things are matching up nicely. He's maybe a touch yellow in there. So we might just move that along a little bit, and what we will do, make sure our blue is blue and not cyan. That's hue v sat, I want hue v hue. Common mistake. And we'll just make sure that we keep that nice blue there. Now let's see how this edits, make sure it's not too jarring. Okay, I think that is pretty good. Or is he? Nope, that's fine. Cool, I'm pretty happy with that. This is B-roll, so I'm not going to bother with a face vignette here. I don't think it's necessary. These four are okay. I will place a green flag on there. As you get more confident, you don't need to flag and go along as you work. I find in complex projects where I'm dealing with a lot of highly specific feedback, the green flag shot by shot is actually really important and really practical and helpful. But we will, for this, just for the time being, we're going to try and develop good working habits. Okay, this guy's doing well, but our blue is still cyan, so what we will do is our same old trick. We will get the cyans, and we will shunt them along to make them a bit bluer. We don't want them to go purple, just be careful. Sometimes when things appear to be aligning with blue, we have a lot of things just above here which are actually going purple and magenta. So we want about there, that's fine. This again. And we've already done this, I believe. Or am I wrong there? Have we not yet dealt with a close-up of this contributor in second pass? Yep, that's what we have. Just bring that in, make sure the feather doesn't make a halo. Let's just track and see what happens. Cool. Cool, definitely needs a bit more contrast there. Nice. Got our board director again. Cool. Now, we have a timeline issue here. This is our graphic that fades in and then fades out. So we're going to go back to the timeline to fix this. We missed this in our first pass, and it's fine. We can put it right. All we need to do is copy and paste. Copy and paste in DaVinci Resolve is a bit awkward, so we have two versions of it. Now, just put the player in the right place. Okay, so now we have two versions of this. I'm going to make a cut here and a cut here as well. So, we now have two versions of this clip, and they both have the grade on them. If we take a close look, we can see that now we have several clips here within Resolve. So what we want to do is remove this clip from its group. Now we want to remove the top clip. This clip we want to remove from its group, and that clip we also want to remove from its group. So we're going to go back in and we're going to remove that from its group. And what we're going to do is add that into the group for close-up of the woman in the white shirt. Hopefully not knock the microphone over whilst doing so. Right, now here's what we're going to do. We're going to turn this opacity down to 0 so that the bottom clip shows, and that has our clip, and that has our, let me find the right word, that has our grade on it for our board director. We're going to hit this diamond here and place a keyframe, and then we're going to go to the point where the graphic is completely visible and our board director is vanished. And then we're going to place another keyframe and turn our opacity up to 100%. What we have here is the clip with no grade on top of the clip with the grade fading in as we fade to the graphic, and it cheats the effect and makes the transition quite simple. Then we're going to remove this from every group entirely. Let's just make sure we have the right. Okay, so we're going to remove that from its group, and we're going to add this into the Now what we're going to do is make that disappear, and then we're going to go to the end, place another keyframe, make it fade in, and now the group, now the clip, now the grade even, it's late now, now the grade is going to fade in, so now we have that fading in. Now when we go back and we see this, our grade appears to fade out here, and it does not interfere with the graphic, and then the grade appears to fade back in with the crossfade here, and that's fine. So just to go over that again, what we've done is we've basically made two versions of this clip and stacked it on top of itself. Underneath we've left the grade on the top we've taken the grade off, then we've made the ungraded version fade on as the graphic comes on to make the grade basically go away and no longer interfere with the clip below. And then we've made a graded version of that clip fade in at the end so that it naturally transitions into the close-up of the woman in the white shirt there. We can now remove the purple flag from all of these, and we're happy from this point to this point, and we'll just give that a big green flag, and we're okay there. Cool. And now we go back to dealing with this clip the way we have done before. So we'll go back. The light has changed a little bit on this one, so what we might just do is bring the mids up slightly. It was a little bit dark there, and that'll be fine. And now we're back to this guy, so we'll copy the face vignette on again. This is another one that might be a little bit awkward. Let's just get this sorted. So that, I'm just going to bring the shadows down a smidge, and I'm going to give that a green flag. I'm happy with that. And these two also. Things are just a little bit yellow here. That's a little bit pink now, so we'll just bring that down. I'm going to bring these shadows down slightly and make it a little bit more grounded so we keep that kind of grounded look, and I think just bring that down, and we might just suck some of the colour out of the reds to keep it back under control. But I kind of like the way that edits. Let's just check that. Still a little bit bright, isn't it? Let's just bring the highlights down. We don't want it to look artificially quashed, but we'll just bring that down a little bit. That's much better. Cool, I'm happy with that now. I will put a green flag on that one. Let's just see how this edits together. Okay, we're going to definitely need some attention in the shadows and some noise reduction on this shot, but we will take care of that in the third pass. Things look a little bit yellow here. Okay, I think that's good. Might just pull a little bit of the colour out again. His beard's a little bit coppery looking. Cool, there we go. This shot is more or less okay. It needs attention in the third pass. I'm going to put a yellow flag on there, so we'll come back to that in the third pass. This shot I'm okay with now. Green flag. We will just copy that across, and then we will track. That's a long shot, so let's just take a look at that in full. See if we can spot any halos around the face, just in case our mask slipped loose when he was moving. Nope, that looks fine to me. Okay, I've got a bit of basic track to do here. I was going to make this part of the wall bluer just by tracking a simple shape onto it. So I'll do that first. There we go, and now that's a much better match for the blue it was in the other shot. Now what I will do is I will do a bit of a face track. The client hasn't picked out the cheese plant in the background, so I'm not too concerned by it. I don't think it's too distracting, especially once I add some contrast to this face. We should be fine. There's a very important difference between obsessing over minute details and delivering the polish that the project needs. And it's always important that we maintain perspective on what's really important here. If we just go and pour an hour into rotoscoping these leaves out, then that's a waste of time. Whereas if we make the wall match and we make the face look good, that's a much better use of time. I'm going to bring the face highlights down slightly because we're starting to get a bit of clipping. Cool, that's good, that's looking good. I will now save, and I'm going to grab a still because that's going to be important for later. I'm going to clear flag, and I'm going to place green flags on these three. Okay, now all I'm really doing here is matching up the face, and that's going to be a face vignette, so... So I want to get that highlight back. But I don't want that to be too extreme. I think that's pretty good. That highlight isn't quite the same. I'm just going to add a little bit of and I might just try and cheat the highlight with the log wheels here. Oh, you know what? That's a stupid idea. Never mind. I might just bring the saturation back up. Let's see how that edits. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. In both cases, there's an issue that I've noticed, and that's we've got some daft looking areas of saturation in the ears and up the nose there, so we're just going to fix those with a HSL. Got oversaturation in our shadows. We're just going to bring those down. There we go. There we are. And then in our group setting here, we're going to do the same. Do a HSL for those areas. Just bring those down. Not that's too much. I can see some grey there. Just bring those down a bit so they don't glare out. And we'll save. Cool. Right, now let's see how these two edit together. I'm pretty happy with that. Definitely need some noise reduction. Cool. A few more I'm going to have to roto that wall out, and maybe in these shots as well. In fact, from this point onwards, it's just contributors to deal with. So I'm just going to now, I said I was going to try and take care of the bluish tinge we had in the beard and the hair here, so let's see if we can pull some colour out of these shadows. Inside this face vignette, so... There we go, so now we've made his beard black again. Whereas before there's some kind of blue interference here that you could see. There's still a little bit there. Let's just... There we go. Now we've taken care of the slight blue in his beard and his hair. Okay, let's see if we can make this blue curve a little bit better. Cool, so we'll track another face vignette. We'll do interactive tracking again. And we'll make sure we have nothing sticking to the watermarking. Just bring that up, make sure it's consistent between the two. His beard doesn't look like a problem here. On balance, I'm now not really that concerned by the grey shoulders on the shirt here. I don't think people are going to notice it that much unless it's been pointed out to them. Let's just see how it edits. No, that's fine. There's such a strong focus on his face, I just don't think you really noticed it unless it were pointed out. So we'll go ahead and we'll fix this. Yeah, okay, we should do that here. We can probably just copy and paste this over from this shot because it's doing the same two things. Let's just make sure that our shape here is correct. We'll just feather the insides and outsides a bit. And track. And then the face vignette. Yep, definitely adds a bit of focus on that face, that's cool. Right, we'll just go through and take care of these. Okay, this is a one-off shot. I would say some of the shadows here look a little bit wonky, look a little bit saturated. So I'm going to go into that and I'm going to bring the shadow saturation down just a little bit. Stop that kind of weird, warm, glowing effect we have in some of our shadows. Cool. And now, let's just take a look. Yep, definitely need a vignette there. And we'll just take a still and we'll use that to make sure we get the face just so. Okay, the face is a little bit red here. Could also do with a bit more saturation. And we need to fix the lips again. Cool, now let's just see how we're going. Okay, we're beginning to get a clipping red channel there, so we'll tone it down a bit, and we'll bring our saturation down as well. Actually, maybe we won't bring our saturation down. Okay, this one needs a bit more work. Just add a little bit of yellow to the mids, a little bit of pink to the highlights there, and we'll bring the saturation back up a little bit. And we're just going to make sure those lips don't look silly. We're just going to keep that under control. Right, let's see how this edits. Okay, good. Okay, maybe it's a little bit saturated. Okay, good. I think that's consistent. This one seems a little bit duller for some reason. We'll just bring the highlights in the face up a little bit. Cool. That's nice and consistent now. We're going to put green flags on these 6. Right, we're getting there. Only got a few left to go. In the case of this shot, it's going to be a simple face vignette. We'll see if her eyes become too distracting. Cool, I'm just gonna those eyes are a bit piercing now, aren't they? Tell you what I will do is I'll bring the blues within this face vignette down a little bit. There we go. Right, onto the close-up. Things in the background there are a little bit red in comparison. So I've got an idea of what we can do, and it involves, yep, a face vignette. Again, that's mostly what we've been doing here is a vignetting pass. But what I can also do is use that to fix a few things. So we'll just make a still for comparison. Okay, that's cool. I also need to bring the blues up because our eyes aren't quite as strong this time. Maybe rotate the cyan and the green towards the blue. Be quite aggressive because they're small areas. Okay, cool. I'm going to hit Alt and O, make an outside node, and now things outside of that face vignette are a little bit red. I want them to be a little bit more yellow, so I'm just going to outside that vignette, make things very slightly more yellow, including her hair, because she's got quite a nice blonde colour here, and it's a little bit pink here due to the skin curve I used before. Now, There we go. And that wall matches up nicely as well. Maybe the neck's going a bit yellow. We could try and stretch that down a bit. See how that moves, not very much. So now her neck is spared the yellowing effect as well. Cool. And we know what we're doing here. And here, once more. Just trying to avoid it going off the edge of the face. Okay, that's fine. Bit of a yellow line there where it's not quite in the right position. Cool. And we will get this face vignette sorted. Just dotting I's and crossing T's now, we're very nearly there. Okay, we're going to need to keyframe this one. We're just going to put automatic keyframing on for everything this time, speed things up a bit. Add a dynamic keyframe. Add a keyframe here, so then we'll go to where it deviates. Put that back. Where it deviates there, then right to the end, and fix that deviation there as well. Turn keyframing off. Now let's just take a look at this and make sure we can't see any halos. Cool. And fix that as well. We've got a bit of a yellow seam down here. Still a bit of a yellow seam. Cool. Save. Excellent, that's all looking nice and matched up now. We'll just move on and we'll get these done, seeing as we're in the mood. Okay, very nearly there. Just save, make sure. Not going to crash. I've had crashes at this point before. Just want to make sure we're not going to lose any work. Okay, final stretch. Got 4 more shots left of... Oh, spoke too soon. It's got a few contributor shots left. Okay, let's just make sure that this doesn't produce a halo. Okay, that'll be fine. Cool. And we will just finish off here. We're going to need to keyframe that to clean it up. Okay, we'll add a keyframe there. And we'll make sure that that's back on track. Back on track again. That's fine. We want to make sure that that's okay. Right, let's just watch this through, see if we can spot any halos. That's fine. That just needs a little bit of keyframing at the end there. We'll go back and turn keyframing off from the last shot now that we remember. So let's just add a keyframe there. We'll make sure that that's okay. Okay, we'll add a keyframe there, and then when it deviates, we'll then drag it back. Let's try and get a bit more of the face included. There we go. So let's watch that through, see if we can spot any halos. Excellent. Okay, we now have a few shots left of this contributor. Let's just go back and get a still from the CU. Fairly simple. Need to remember to go into interactive tracking. Need to remember to go into interactive tracking mode, I say actually facing the microphone. And make sure we don't have any tracking points on the watermark. And then track through. Okay, looks like that could result in a halo. Let's just watch it through. There we go. Okay, we'll just shift that over here a little bit. Cool. Right, we're on the final shot now. Once we've sorted this shot, we're at the end of second pass. Let's just check that through, see if we can find any halos. Okay, excellent. Right. I would call that the end of a second pass. We'll go back and put green flags in all of this. So I've got 2 yellow flag shots to deal with, this one and this one in the third pass. I'm going to render this out. I'm going to send this on to my client. I'm going to say this is very close now. If you have any problems, tell me now and I can fix them. And I've got a few known issues. I've got this shot and I've got the other shot I know I need to fix. I'm going to go through, I'm going to pay attention to coloured noise in the shadows, and then we're going to do some denoising. But that's pretty much it. We're approaching the end of this project now. We've done quite a comprehensive first pass, and now we've got our fine match and our face vignettes and everything done. It's in a pretty good place. It's very nearly finished, so we're going to move on and just finish this in a third pass, and the third pass isn't going to take as long as the second or the first in this case. We've got 2 shots to deal with, and then we're mostly going through and adding noise reduction. So we're going to go over a little bit about noise reduction. Now, that is a paid feature of Resolve. It's a very powerful paid feature of Resolve, but if you don't have it, don't worry. You can still finish this project. It just won't have the NR included. So click on through to the next lecture when you're ready.